you're going to start to see, like I mentioned before, you're really going to start to see a lot of research coming out on all these things that we're talking about, and even in the mainstream, in Time, Newsweek, any articles that you read, because the benefits are extremely profound, and the side effects are none to minimal, right? You might actually feel better, which is a good side effect. And so you're going to really start seeing this, and I hope that with all the hopefully all the knowledge that you've gained, and all the repetition that we've done in this class, that you'll read something, you'll be like, oh, this is what Dr. Zappaterra talks about, and I know something about it, and so you'll feel informed. And there is an element to all practices, in my opinion, of actually enhancing the practice when you have a little bit of knowledge about it, when there's some understanding of, let's say, the science or the physiology or what might be happening in your body or mind, that it's actually enhanced in your own experience. And I'm having a lot of people sort of reflect that back to me. That they're finding as difficult as it might be to understand, let's say, the science or the physiology, that it actually really helps them to sit down and do the practice, and it actually enhances their practice because they have a sense that something's actually going on inside, and they're not just doing the practice, for instance. Although some would say, well, you should just do the practice to do the practice, and I completely agree with that, but sometimes it's much knowing something, actually having some knowledge and knowing something actually does enhance it. So that has been true for me, and it seems like it's also that's being reflected back to me in this in a lot of the teachings that I'm doing. Yeah, so what I was saying is, I think you're going to start seeing that in numerous places, from academics to businesses to churches to temples, synagogues, essentially everywhere. Also in classrooms and kids, because it applies to people of all ages. It applies to us all. And we don't need anybody to do it, right? I keep on saying that. It's sort of like, how do we train ourselves to be what we call that, that self-efficacious? And so that's, it's sort of like, hey, if I'm driving, I have my breath. If I'm walking, I have my breath. If I'm on top of the skyscraper, I have my breath. If I'm in a, if I'm in a stressful situation, I have my breath. I don't need to, I forgot my medication at home, or, where's my phone so I can start that app to play that music, or it's with you, right? Which I sort of see it as this just beautiful God-given divine gift, and that has all these quite amazing properties. And so why not learn about it? And the more that we learn about the physiology of how it can benefit us, the more you are going to see it applied in a wide spectrum of areas, for rest and relaxation, to treat anxiety or panic, for depression, et cetera, but also just to create new synapses in our brain and help us prevent cognitive decline and get our brain fluid to actually flow better, and clean out any of the debris that may build up throughout the day. So that's why I'm kind of honing in. I do think it's probably, I do think over the next 10 years, it's just going to absolutely explode. The things that we're going to learn about the breath are just going to be amazing. But people have been doing these practices for millennia, and now it's really having a profound effect because we're combining the knowledge of the physiology and the brain chemistry and the connections, et cetera. This was just published. It was just accepted. It was published February 2nd, 2023. And the title of the paper is Breathwork Interventions for Adults with clinically diagnosed anxiety disorders, a scoping review. So essentially, what they did is a lot of different universities from Australia to the U.S. To Cambridge, Duke, et cetera, just recently published February 2nd, 2013. They actually claim that this is one of the first reviews looking at different breathwork practices and anxiety. So what a review is, usually what these scoping reviews are, if you're not familiar with them, is what they do is they look at the entire literature pool and put it together in a review. So they have certain criteria that they say, okay, let's go to the literature and let's pick out every single article that we can find that talks about breathing or breathwork practice and anxiety. Okay. And then they have certain criteria of how to pick out the good ones, let's say, and they talk about, hey, this is what we think are good studies. And they'll give you that criteria. And then they tell you, out of the 1,000 studies that we looked at, usually it's in the tens, like 20s, 30s, 40s, 40 studies. That would be a lot of studies, let's say. Usually it's in that sort of number, even less sometimes, because there's a lot of poor quality studies. And so what they're trying to do is get rid of the poor quality studies and keep the good ones. Okay. And so that's what a scoping review is. And, anxiety is so prevalent, right? I think they call it one of the most common mental disorders, but we all on a day-to-day basis, we feel anxiety, right? A little bit of anxiety here, a little, Susie, going into an unknown place, a little bit of an anxiety, right? And yet she doesn't have an anxiety disorder per se, right? So therefore, these are not only for a diagnosis of anxiety, but to me, it's like anytime that we feel that stress response come on, that bit of anxiety, worry, panic, whatever it might be, that we actually have a tool in our toolbox to turn on the other side of it, which is that rest and digest that we've been talking about so frequently. Okay, so essentially what you see here, from 1,081 articles, right? So they identified 1,081 articles. What they found was 16 of them were actually good. 16 of them were actually good. So that's a pretty low number compared to the 1,081. But that's fairly common. If you start reading these sorts of things, you'll see that there's a drop off that is prevalent in essence. This is an interesting slide that hopefully you're very familiar with. That when we are stressed, we trigger the sympathetic nervous system, or what we've called the fight or flight. Right? You're either you're ready to combat, you're ready to battle somebody, or you're going to run away from them. When we have the fight or flight or the sympathetic nervous system be activated, we have increased heart rate. And what we have what's called bronchial dilation. These are the bronchi are the tubes that go into the lungs to help us breathe. You get bronchial dilation because if we need to fight or run, we need to get air to our lungs. Okay. And then the opposite here is parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest. And what they say here is slow diaphragmatic breathing. So this is the exercise we're actually going to do today, is slow diaphragmatic breathing. This causes decreased heart rate and bronchial constriction. So it's sort of the balance of the stress response. Okay. So again, they looked at 1,000 different articles, and what they found here there were different breathwork styles, which I think is really cool. Okay, they were able to pull out, and here's the image that I really wanted to look at. Here's the image that I really wanted to look at. Okay, so so here are the type of breathwork interventions. Slow diaphragmatic breathwork had 5 studies that were significant for improving anxiety. 5 studies that were significant for improving anxiety. The next one that was equally as good was respiratory or heart rate variability biofeedback. This is akin to the heart math. This heart rate variability. We've been talking about heart rate variability, the respiratory heart rate, right? As we breathe in and out, we're bringing the heart rate, we're increasing heart rate variability with a nice slow in breath and a nice slow out breath. Sky, here there's a hyperventilation study. One study showed no significant, the other one showed significant improvement. Hypoventilation, which is slowing your breath, and controlled breathing. Attention to breathing, so simply just bringing your attention to your breath, showed significant anxiety. BRCR, which I don't know what that is, but easily Googleable. Breathes more slowly and or shallowly. I don't know why the shallowly would be there, because there's when we breathe more shallow, we tend to increase anxiety. So I'm not surprised that this actually was not significant. But what you see here is 5 different studies. 5 different studies that showed slow diaphragmatic breathing being significant for anxiety improvement, and 5 different studies for respiratory heart rate variability biofeedback being significant for anxiety improvement. All right, that is very significant from a scientific perspective. All right, if we had 5 different studies that showed that SSRIs, the most common medication that we prescribe for anxiety or depression, was beneficial, that would be incredible. We have some that show that it's simply, as good as placebo in essence. Here we have 5 different studies that show that slow diaphragmatic breathing can help with anxiety, or just simply bringing your attention to your breath. One study, right? Controlled slow breathing, one study. Heart rate variability, that's really using some sort of biofeedback, but you don't need the biofeedback per se. All you need is that breathing in 5 seconds, breathing out 5 seconds, breathing in 5 seconds, breathing out 5 seconds, which is essentially what heart math teaches, and has all the apps and the devices that they sell to you to do the heart rate variability. But you don't need the heart rate variability if you're doing the practice and you're noticing the benefit. Okay. What they concluded was that notably slow diaphragmatic, deep or controlled breathing regimens revealed a significant reduction in anxiety in 5 studies. All right. One study showed a decrease in panic attacks. That's fairly profound, right? If we had a medication that a pharmaceutical industry was trying to promote, that medication would be FDA approved in no time at all. if we had 5 studies that showed that there was a decrease in anxiety, and one of those studies actually showed a decrease in panic attacks. All right, we're going to get more of these reviews, and we're also going to get more of these studies looking at breath work, different types of breath work practices, and the effects on panic, stress. And there might be some where, for instance, maybe one is better for panic than for anxiety or stress or chronic stress, for instance. And that's all gonna come out in the next 5 years or so. So today what I'd like to do is I'd like to do a slow diaphragmatic practice. Okay. Now this is different than simply bringing your attention to your breath. The diaphragm is a large muscle in the middle. If you imagine the large muscle sort of at the end of your rib cage, okay, it's a flat, it's a dome-like muscle. It's thin, and when you breathe in, the diaphragm goes down. It actually flattens. Okay. When it goes down, what it's doing is it's separating the lungs from the liver and the stomach and all the organs in the belly. So it really separates the lungs and the heart from the organs in the belly. And so when we breathe in, the diaphragm goes down. When we breathe out, when we exhale, diaphragm comes up. All right. So if you can imagine, balloons of your lungs, and as you breathe in, the balloons are expanding, and the diaphragm goes down, giving space in your thoracic cavity for your lungs to expand. All right. Now, what happens when we ask people to take a deep breath, if you've ever taken diaphragmatic breathing classes, the most common thing when we ask you to take a deep breath is you actually puff out your chest. So it looks something like this. With slow, deep diaphragmatic breathing, all right, you actually don't puff out your chest. Okay, what you do is you actually use your diaphragm. And so if you can imagine, right, as you breathing in, you actually try to keep your chest relatively still. Yeah, it can move a little bit. Your rib cage will expand. But because you're actually doing diaphragmatic breathing, what that is that as your diaphragm goes down, well, if your diaphragm goes down and your lungs expand, where do your organs go? Well, they can't be, they will be pushed down into your pelvis, but they can't because your pelvis is bone. So you have a belly, right? The belly is nice and soft. And so when you breathe in, your belly goes out. And when you exhale or breathe out, your belly goes in. And so you actually are moving your belly with your diaphragm through this type of breath. This is great to do with kids because it can be fun. You can lay down, for instance, on the floor and put a little rubber ducky on their belly, and you can ask them, okay, breathe in and push the rubber ducky up, right? Because they want to push their belly out. Or have a ball on their belly and see if they can get the ball to roll off their belly, like put the ball in their belly button, and see if when they breathe in, right? Okay, breathe in and you're actually pushing your belly out. Breathe in, push your belly out, and see if you can get the ball to fall off your belly. Or you put a boat on their belly and the boat goes up and down with each breath, and it can be quite fun, right? So a good way of practicing this is actually putting one hand. So I'm just going to show you here, putting one hand on your belly and another hand on your chest. And when you breathe in, right, I'm going to try to accentuate this so that you can see it. When you breathe in, okay, your belly goes out. So it'd be like this. It'd be, So inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Do you see how my chest isn't moving very much? The hand on my chest, it's not going. When I inhale, my belly comes out. Okay. That's diaphragmatic breathing. That's diaphragmatic breathing. Is we're engaging our diaphragm. We're engaging our diaphragm. And we're mobilizing our organs and we're pushing our belly out. And then when we exhale, we bring our belly in. We push our belly out and bring our belly in. If at first this is challenging to do when you're sitting, then you can try standing or lying down. You try standing or lying down. If you stand, I'll stand. You can see my belly, so I'm going to inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Okay. Do you see how I'm really pushing my belly out? Right? Kind of like I got a little Buddha belly, or I got a little baby in my belly, but that's the motion that you're actually doing because the diaphragm is coming down. And when you do diaphragmatic breathing, because the diaphragm is coming down, the organs have to go somewhere. And so you want your organs to go out into your belly because that's the soft part of where they're going. Okay. This is really good to do, for instance, if you have insomnia and you're having a difficult time sleeping, you're laying down, all right? You're laying down and you just put your hand, sometimes I just put my hand on my chest and my belly. And I can do a body scan too that we've done previously, right? Do a slight body scan, see if there's any tension in my body, try to release any tension consciously, and then just bringing in that diaphragmatic, where you're just paying a little bit more attention to the diaphragm going down and your belly coming up and then going down, coming up and going down, coming up and going down. Yes, various variations of this are present in terms of you can change the speed of it. Sometimes they call it bellows breathing. Where you're doing it rapidly, but it's still a rapid diet. That when you do it like that, because you're doing a rapid breath, you're really trying to generate energy. You're trying to generate heat in the body. Probably not a way to maybe activate the parasympathetic nervous system at first. I'd recommend just slowing it down. Okay. You're also massaging your organs too when you're doing this. So you're moving the liver and the stomach, and you're pushing your large intestine and things like that all the way. So it's sort of like an internal organ massage as well. So that can be beneficial even for people who have like constipation or stuff like that. Little internal organ massage. Okay, great. So let's do our practice. Let's go with our practice. Okay, so let's find a comfortable posture. A posture we feel relaxed yet alert. And for this practice, you can do it sitting, standing, or lying down. You may notice that lying down, you can notice your belly moving more and activating the diaphragm, or even standing. Closing your eyes if you feel comfortable closing your eyes. If not, having a soft downward breath. Sorry, a soft downward gaze. Just taking a few deep breaths, really bringing in the new oxygen into your lungs, and exhaling and allowing yourself to be here right now, irregardless of what may be going on in your life, that you are here right now in this moment. And just taking an inventory of how you feel, what your present moment experience is right now. You have a lot of thoughts or emotions or sensations. Is there some peace? Whatever it is, that it doesn't have to be changed. There's no right or wrong. Just simply is. And now, if you feel comfortable putting your hand on your belly, let's take a few nice, deep, slow breaths using diaphragmatic breathing. That as we breathe in nice and slowly, we push our belly out. Our diaphragm engages. And we're not noticing so much movement in our chest cavity. Our chest isn't rising and falling. And as we breathe out, the belly comes back in. And as we breathe in, we expand the belly, using our diaphragm really to push those organs down, expanding the chest cavity from below. And as we exhale, bringing the belly back in. And continuing with this breathing at whatever pace is comfortable for you. Breathing in, expanding the belly, pushing your belly out. Breathing out, contracting the belly, bringing the belly back in. Breathing in, expanding the belly and pushing the belly out. And breathing out, contracting the belly and bringing the belly back in. Nothing has to be forced. Just at a nice, comfortable pace, rhythm, whatever works for you. Breathing in, expanding the belly out. Breathing out, bringing the belly back in. And continuing this practice for a few more minutes at whatever pace is comfortable for you. And just noticing where you're at in your practice. Breathing in, pushing your belly out. Breathing out, bringing your belly back in. And taking a few more diaphragmatic breaths. Breathing in, pushing your belly out. Breathing out, bringing your belly in. And on your last exhale, just allowing yourself to exhale and pause. And see when you need to inhale again. And taking a real deep breath. And just sending gratitude and appreciation to yourself for this practice that you've done today. Noticing how you feel compared to when you began, if there's any change or not. Opening your eyes if your eyes are closed. Reorienting yourself to your room and surroundings. And just taking a moment to reflect on your practice.